Thank you very much. We have a very important topic, and obviously we don't have as many minutes to cover the issue. But I believe this is one of the most important topics in leadership, because what is leading? Leading is influencing people enough for them to want to follow you to an agreed objective. Now, if you don't even know yourself, how will you lead others? So, therefore, self leadership is a precursor to any leadership, whatever leadership role you have in your current organization, or in your family, or in your clan. We need to come to where we emphasize, are you leading yourself? In the minutes we have available, I will start by talking about the greatest enemy of self leadership. What can stop you from leading yourself well? And I'll try to look at various definitions of self-leadership and talk about what it involves. How do you really lead yourself? We'll talk about products of good self-leadership, which include balanced living, which talks about purposeful living, and we'll go on. Let's see whether we'll be able to cover most of it. I want to start by asking the question: leading yourself means being the master of yourself. Why should you bother? Lao Tzu is quoted to have said, mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. Then Henley is quoted to have said, I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. That's what self-leadership helps you to be. The African Review magazine says, and I quote, before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. Oh, I was promoted. Oh, I will say, you feel like that's what success is. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. In other words, you need to start with yourself, because that now releases you to concentrate on developing others. Using this understanding, you should answer the question, are you a leader? If you discover yourself that you never think of others, you just think of yourself alone, it means you have not sorted yourself yet. You have not been able to master yourself. That's why every discussion is, was he insulting me? What did he mean? If you are oversensitive, chances are you are not a leadership material. And of course, you know what you mean by sensitive people. You say something, you didn't mean to hurt him, but he's already hurt. They are the kind of people who move around the organization, and they should put a board around them. Handle with care, right side up, like eggs. And I'm sure you have workmates like that. And some of them, unfortunately, even get into leadership supervisory levels, who are very oversensitive. If you're oversensitive, it means you haven't reached the level to be able to manage that. You need to reach the level, and we don't have enough time to deal with it, to reach a level where you are able to manage your own emotions. That's what we call emotional intelligence. You need to be emotionally intelligent. And what does that mean? The ability to understand your own emotions and so act outside them. You feel angry, but once you understand your anger, you are able to hold your anger, talk with sense, without pouring out your anger onto others. That sensitive person who erupts like a volcano means you do a lot of damage and destroy his own career, and it all began from inability to manage yourself. But emotional intelligence goes beyond that. It's not just ability to manage your own emotions. It's the ability to identify the emotions that work in the other person. And sometimes you see somebody has lost control. He is angry, lost control. They even call you, you dog. You smile. You don't get angry. Why? You understand they are not talking. It's their anger talking. The ability to see the emotions of another person and manage them. Don't reply to them according to their emotions, because you know they are not the ones talking. Now, that ability that you can deal with a volcano of a man without you getting to become a volcano. You know, they say it takes two to fight. So he is fighting everybody, you are not replying. Because you can see clearly where he is. That's what we are talking about. Your ability to manage yourself so that you are not provoked, so that you do not react with anger because of somebody else's anger. That's what we are talking about, self-leadership. You are a master of yourself. Somebody else talking about this same subject says, if you seek to lead, and we are talking about you seeking to lead others, then at least 50% of your time should be leading yourself. Can see how important this self-leadership topic is. 50% of your day should spend in leading yourself. What we mean by leading yourself, we are talking about your own purpose, your own ethics, your own principles. What really motivates you? Manage it. Your own conduct. That is what is taking you 50% of your time. And if you manage properly, you don't require a lot of time with the others. You invest another 20% on leading those with authority over you. A lot of people are very good at their job, but they do not know how to manage their bosses. And you end up with a lot of frustrations daily because you have never learned how to manage your boss. People who know how to manage themselves understand how to relate with the boss. They will not talk in a way that provokes the boss because they know how to handle him. They understand his emotions. So 20% of your time should be on managing, because if you manage him well, he will keep off. And you can actually now do your job properly because you have learned how to manage him. If he's the kind of guy who likes to micromanage, overfeed him with the reports. Let him know exactly what is happening in your department until he is overwhelmed by your information, until he gets to say, hey, now that this information is too much. Can you reduce? He will stop interfering with you. You learn how to manage your boss. 20% of your time is on that activity. You still have another 15% to deal with your peers. They are not your bosses, but the head of this other department, and this other department, and these are and you are all reporting to one person. If you don't know how to manage them, there is a peer competition, peer pressure that can mess you up. You need to learn how to manage that. Do you notice then that you are only left with 15% to lead your subordinates? Because by that time, your subordinates have learned how to work without supervision, how to work without a lot of interference, and it will be just a question of delegation and report and analyzing and feedback. You don't have to spend all your time, micromanaging your subordinates. That is from the African Review, and I think that is something we need to ask ourselves: is that true of you? Are you managing others, or are you managing yourself? And how are you doing that? Because that really will be the thing that you need to ask yourself. Anyway, let's go on. And my screen is refusing to move, but I hope it will work. I want to quote a Bible verse, Ecclesiastes 9:11. The race is not to the swift, or the battle to the strong, nor does food come to the wise, or wealth to the brilliant, or favor to the learned, but time and chance happens to them all. Are you getting the message? You may be the most competent person, but you see people going places and they leave you behind. Because the fact that you are swift does not mean you win the race. And sometimes you'll be the strongest guy, but you'll not win the battle. You may be the wise. You'll be the wealthy. But success doesn't come your way. It is the ability to manage yourself that will determine whether you succeed or you don't. But we are not really talking about, self-management. We are talking about self-leadership. Self-leadership takes us from self-management, which is a command and control perspective of self. It's like you are commanding and controlling yourself. And so in the process, you are focusing on stubbornly directing through willpower. That is actually what self-management is. But that's not what you're talking about. We're asking you to move to a model of inspiring and influencing to your better self. That means there's something in you, a motivation. What moves you? That is the one that will cause you to move, rather than just trying to control yourself. Please remember, leaders are strategic. So when you talk about anything about leadership and self-leadership, everything is done for a reason. So you spend a lot of your time asking, why am I doing what I'm doing? And you answer that question, you are not answering a management question. You are answering a leadership question. But having emphasized all that, how come a lot of people are unable to lead themselves? I have a few suggestions. The first problem is what we call entitlement mentality. Entitlement mentality. Entitlement mentality is, I'm the manager, isn't it? This is what's supposed to happen. So you think because you are the manager, people must do the following. For example, it is tea time. Because you are the manager, you expect somebody to pour tea for you. But that's not in their job description. And anyway, why are you unable to pour tea for yourself? Why do you need somebody to do it? And when people fellow managers feel like you're using them like your house girl, you end up with the problems. And it all came from entitlement mentality. Now, when you have entitlement mentality, you'll be fighting with people on a continuous basis. And you will therefore not progress your leadership because you are held tight by always feeling frustrated and appreciated because you are waiting for people to do something. You do a good job, and the CEO does not even mention it, doesn't even say anything about it. And you feel, wait a minute, what's wrong with him? Next time I will not work hard. Because you feel entitled to people congratulating you or commending you. Don't they know what they are? Sometimes you feel like, does this organization know what a jewel of a man they have? What do they do without me? When you have that idea of feeling like you are the one who moves and shakes the organization, that's what you call entitlement mentality. Because you are not going with the servant mindset. You are going with, look, they have a privilege to have me here. And we have seen especially the younger generation with that entitlement mentality. And that's why they keep running out of work. They work 1 year here, 2 years there, 3 years, because they are feeling they are not getting what they are entitled to. Haki yetu. It's the generation I'm talking about. You can't lead yourself well when you are taken up so much by your pride. The Bible actually says, pride comes before a fall. One way of showing you are managing, you are leading yourself well, is you have no entitlement. And when people have no entitlement, they appreciate when they are thanked, because they do not believe they are entitled to anybody thanking them. They appreciate when they make an impact, because they know they are not the only people around. And that way they feel motivated. They work with a motivation. And it's very difficult to discourage them. Even if you don't promote them, you don't reward them, they still work because their motivation is not your comment. So my friend, this morning we are saying, if you are going to lead yourself well, remove that entitlement mentality. Maybe you're a husband and you feel entitled to your wife. Haven't you seen how it is, the kind of friction it's bringing in your own marriage? Maybe you are a nurse and you feel entitled that the doctor should treat you in a certain way. Haven't you seen what it has meant? Maybe you are beautiful, and so you think all men should be turning your direction wherever your workmate should recognize you used to be the university queen for your year. You won a beauty contest. People don't seem to notice. And you feel hurt. They don't notice. My friend, you will be taken up too much by your self-consciousness to ever become a leader. You are not a good leader until you are able to manage that. Second problem is finding someone to blame. And you know, when you feel that there is somebody to blame, you can never work. In fact, I tell my mentees, the moment you have somebody to blame, that's the end of your progress. You know, the kind of school my parents took me. Oh, no one, that's why I speak the English the way I speak. As if you don't know that you can go to the computer and there are now English packages that can teach you how to pronounce English words if you think your English is not good. Now, but you keep tied to blaming your parents. The moment you find somebody to blame, you never progress. Your performance appraisal wasn't good. I know why. It's because I did not greet the boss when we met during the party. Now, the moment you find somebody to blame, you'll not put the mirror backwards to see yourself and see what is it in your performance you could actually improve. Because now you know. You even tell your spouse, I'll never get a promotion until that guy is removed out of my department. Finding someone to blame is the end of self-leadership. Because the person you are blaming becomes your controller. And you feel helpless. You can't move until he moves aside. So what is it you are blaming? Because you see, there may be contributory negligence in somebody else. Somebody contributed to where you are now. But you can get yourself out of it. So why are you blaming the other person? Like I've told you, it may be true that you came from a broken marriage. Your parents were had a broken marriage. You are now married. But the way you are relating, your marriage is going to break. And you keep blaming it on your parents. Surely, you are an adult. You saw what they did. You did not like it. Why are you copying it? Self-leadership means you move away from the blame game. Understand, yes, somebody may have contributed to your bad performance, to your bad situation, but there is something you can do about it. So when you don't come out of it, you have nobody to blame except yourself. That forces you, motivates you to work on yourself and improve. So finding someone to blame is the end of self-leadership, because the one you are blaming starts controlling you. Another one that you have to handle if you are doing self-leadership is a tendency to be one or the other. For example, an optimist. Who is an optimist? An optimist is a person who never sees anything going wrong. Never. Even when everybody around them can see something is going wrong, he can't see. He is a super optimist. That's one of the greatest weaknesses anybody can have. And you know, generally, because motivational speakers keep telling us to be optimists, that's a dangerous thing to be. Because I repeat to you, an optimist is a person who never sees anything going wrong. They always see things going right. What goes wrong with that? It then means they never ever can prepare for the problem before the problem happens. They can't. Because they can't see it in advance. When they do a project, they only see things going well. They don't sit back and ask proactively, what could go wrong with this project? Even when you start saying, but you know, don't be negative. An optimist does not want you to talk about anything that could go wrong. So an optimist in his own personal life is always getting shocks. Because when something goes wrong, he wonders, how did it go wrong? But if only he was a realist, he would have seen through things that can go wrong, through things that can go right, and you'd have prepared for both. You cannot lead yourself when you block yourself to realities of life. And that's what an optimist does. Self-leadership is becoming a realist. Now you can understand what I'm going to say about a pessimist. A pessimist is somebody who always sees something negative. If you have a pessimist for a wife, you go for a workshop in London, you come back with a dress, and you give her the dress, and it's a very expensive dress. She starts asking you, tell me, who did you see in London? I say, why? For this dress must be bribing me. Now, you thought it's going to be, the dress will be received well. But because she's a pessimist, she is always seeing even a gift is seen from a negative angle. So next time you don't even know whether to bring her a gift or not. Do you have friends like that? They are unable to manage themselves. Optimists are people who have been unable to manage themselves. They do not want to face reality. The moment you say, have you thought about this? They think you are being negative. A pessimist are people who do not want to see anything going right. They feel like nothing goes well for them, nothing can go well for them, so they're always thinking negatively. By thinking about negatively, they lose energy, they lose motivation, they are unable to move forward. A pessimist is a person who's and if you work with him in a team, the team will have difficulty moving forward. So what he is saying, people who lead themselves are realists. A realist is a person who takes time as an optimist to think what can go right, then takes time as a pessimist to see what can go wrong, then realistically looks at both, prepares for both, and then moves forward. That means when something drastic happens, he will be sorry it has happened, but he will not be in shock. He is able to come out quickly out of what has gone wrong because he has emergency response plan. Emergency response plan is when you assume something can go wrong and prepare. If it goes wrong, this is what I do. That's what a realist does. He has already thought, if this happens, I'll do this. If this happens, I'll do this. That's what we are talking about, self-leadership. It's the ability to be a realist as you look in the future. Another problem you need to talk about is inability to manage expectations. Expectation management is one of the most important issues in self-leadership, because expectations are very important, but you manage them. Maybe as a young professional, there are certain things you expected. You are now 50 years old. You must find a way of reassessing your expectations so that the expectations are realistic for the age you happen to be in, or for the facts as they are on the ground, or because you now know yourself. You know what you are capable of and what you are not capable of. You understand yourself better now. So you don't fix that I said I would be the CEO by the age of 40. Now you are at 8 and you can see it's not happening. But you are still pushing and you have become a rough person, hurting everybody because you want to go up. Have you ever heard of the saying, please remember me on your way up? Why? Because you might need me on your way down. But when you have somebody who is unable to manage the expectation, to reorganize the expectations, you have a problem. So when you're talking about leadership, self-leadership, is that ability to adjust your entitlement, to stop having somebody to blame, to avoid being an optimist, to avoid being a pessimist, to be a realist, therefore, and know how to readjust your expectations, which is a very, very important thing. As I talk to you, I'm talking to myself. Because even as you grow older, those are the kind of things that you need very clearly to think about and to ask yourself, are you in it or not? You know, as we go to house of self-leadership, you know, I like what Steve Covey says, and I would really recommend, if you haven't read it, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he's talking about self-leadership. And since the book is there, I'll not go into it. He is saying somebody who is good in self-leadership is proactive. He begins with the end in mind. In other words, he doesn't do something he had not thought through there what the end will be. He put that first things first. And he's always thinking of win-win, not win-lose. He works with people on a win-win. Then he seeks first to understand more than to be understood. And he has understood what synergy is, what you get out of working with others. And he knows something about sharpening the saw, the dangers of working with a blunt equipment, and the importance of improving themselves. But what really do the gurus define self-leadership as? I decided to approach it before coming to definition. So that definition is neither here nor there, but I think it's still good to look at it. Bryant and Kazan say that the practice of intentionality, self-leadership, is the practice of intentionally influencing your thinking, your own feeling, your own actions towards your objective. That means if you have self-leadership, you have clear objectives, and then you influence how you think, you influence how you feel, you influence your actions so that you are able to reach your objective. Charles Mans was the first to use the term self-leadership in 1983. And so we can look at his definition. And he said it's a comprehensive self-influence, self-influence perspective that concerns leading oneself. Then Peter Drucker, the leadership guru, although we normally talk of him as my management guru, said that being a self-leader is to serve as the chief or captain or CEO of your own life. Don't allow yourself to be a copycat. Ever heard of Mason who said, you were born an original, don't die a copy. So you chart your own way. You are your own CEO. Brian Tracy talks about self-leadership as setting a goal and taking full responsibility for that goal. In other words, when you fail, you have nobody to blame. You may have consulted people, but you don't blame the people you consulted because you made your own decision on the goal and you took responsibility to move towards that goal. Self-leadership, which also is being called self-mastery, is the answer to ask yourself, how do we develop ourselves to survive and thrive in a volatile, uncertain, like during COVID-19, complex, unambiguous world? In other words, as we move on in the world is becoming more and more complex, more and more volatile, more and more uncertain, more and more ambiguous. Only self-leaders that I've been describing will be able to make it through life. So what this involves, self-leadership is about constantly developing the inner game. Mindset. So that's basically what we are talking about when we talk about self-leadership. Constantly developing the inner game, your mindset. That's why you take time to read books, you take time to consult others, you take time to have what Christians call a quiet time. Quiet time is a time when you block everything else for an hour or two. You're just between you and God, so that He influences your thinking and your mindset. That's what I call the inner game. And the outer game will never succeed if the inner game is not properly done. The outer game is where you do actions. That's where we see what you are doing. But it's based on the inner game. The inner game consists of the area of intentions. What are your intentions? Self-awareness. A very, very important topic. Self-leadership can't happen without self-awareness. Self-awareness is knowing your weaknesses, knowing your strength. You have done a SWOT analysis on yourself. You have a PhD on yourself. You understand yourself. You know, if I go that route, I'll ruin myself. You know very well that if you are near a beautiful woman, you may end up messing up your own marriage. So people say, no, we are just having a cup of tea over. It's platonic love, but you know your weakness. You don't agree to go for tea with women. Oh, they laugh at you. But don't worry, you know yourself. You don't go that direction. Other people get their careers ruined by women. Yours is not ruined because you know yourself. You are able to manage yourself. You don't say, but the people laugh at me. That's irrelevant. People who fear to be laughed at are people who are not self-aware. And if they are self-aware, they have chosen not to be self-leaders. Then there's self-confidence and self-efficacy. When you mean self-efficacy, self-belief to achieve personal mastery. That's the inner game we are talking about. The outer game is a game of where you influence others. It's the game of, are you making impact? And when we talk about impact is how intention and influence will be measured out there. You can't say you have succeeded until people can see clearly out there how you are whatever you have been spending time in the inner game, what difference has it made in the world? And that will be something that you have to ask yourself, is it something you are doing? So that's really what we are talking about when we are talking about the inner game. And my hope and prayer is, as I'm talking, you will be asking yourself, am I in it or not? What in my life needs to be reviewed? The way I responded last week to that, to my boss, did it show me as somebody who is in control, or somebody out of control? Am I leading myself, or am I starting to react? You know, so and so made me lose my temper. That's untrue. Nobody can make you lose your temper. Your temper is under your control. You made a choice. I'll give him a piece of my mind. That's a choice you made. Messed up. You have not been fired. It all came from your inability to lead yourself. Don't allow other people to control your emotions. And if your emotions, you lose them, don't look for somebody to blame. Blame yourself, because that way, next time, you'll be able to avoid getting into a similar situation. So when you're talking about self-leadership, we are talking about being grounded and realistic about what you are good at and what needs to improving. So you know you are not good at this area. So you easily delegate. You easily call for help. In the process, you are the one who succeeds, although you got help. But if you insist on specializing on your weak areas and doing nothing about your strong areas, your end result is you don't succeed. That's bad self-leadership. Know yourself and know your strength, and know your weak area, and look for where if you can delegate, or how, if you can improve, you improve. And I've talked about self-awareness, about knowing your intentions. Always check, why am I doing what I'm doing? Knowing your values. What are the boundaries? What are values? Values are boundaries within which you operate. In other words, you are willing to be fired rather than do something outside your core values. I call core values boundaries within which we travel to our strategic intent. As well as knowing your personality. Do you know your personality? Don't try to be like somebody else if God didn't create you like that. You also know what can push your buttons. And I've talked about that quite a bit. Once you know what can push your buttons, you're very careful. And sometimes you say, hey, give me a moment. You run to the toilet. Why you not in the toilet? Not because you need the toilet, but you need to be out. You know your baton is about to go loose. You know what derails you. Have you been able to identify that? If you have, the next step is, are you managing it? Are you leading yourself? Another area is the area of intention. What is an inner narrative about why achieving an objective is important? You must tell yourself, why am I doing this? Don't do things because others are doing. Don't do things because your parents told you to do it. Don't do it because that's what is done by people of your age. You must answer the question, not to another, not to your spouse, to yourself. Why am I doing what I am doing? That's what we mean by self-leadership. And that will lead you to self-confidence that comes from knowing your capacity and strength. So self-leadership is having a developed sense of who we are, therefore. Because if you do all the things I've been talking about, you know yourself. You have a PhD on yourself. You know who you are. Number two, you know what you can do. You know what you are capable of. But number three, you know where you are going. You know, this may take me time, but I know where I want to be finally. So sometimes you are going through a very difficult time. Sometimes you are doing a very boring job. Sometimes but you know how does it add up to the total, because you have a clarity on your life's purpose. I've written a book, Discovering Your Life's Purpose. Self-leadership starts with that. If I ask you clearly, do you have your vision, mission, and core values? Not for your organization, not for your family, but for you an individual. Can you write them down? If you want to see mine, just go to my website and you'll see mine, www.johnganga.org. It's important. You can't really manage yourself until you have a clarity. By the age of 80, what do you feel God will have helped you to achieve? When you see the total picture, you are able to survive a current dry spell because you see it in the light of the total picture. You are clear about where you are going. And all this is coupled with the ability now on the outside to influence others. You work on your communication skills. You work on manage your emotions. You work on your behavior, because all that is all people. That's what people are seeing. But that will not be possible when you don't know who you are, what you wear, what you can do, and where you are going. All that is on the way to getting where you should be going. You know, self-leadership foundation, from what I've seen you can see, is based on purposefulness. Good self-leaders can clearly give you their purpose in life. Not what they are doing now, but what they are planning to do for the rest of their life. They can give you their CV by the age of 80. Purposefulness is self-leadership. Because you see, purposefulness is the one that tells you whether you are succeeding or failing. Because you are not failing according to now. You are failing on the basis of how is it adding to my long-term goal. The basis of self-leadership is also mindfulness, not mindlessness. You never do something because I feel like it. Why did you do it? I enjoyed it. Why did you do it? That was what our age was doing. No. You are always mindful. You think about what you are doing. Number three, it is the basis of self-leadership, reflection. You always think, that's what I did. What was that? What was good in that? What was not good? You are reflecting on the things that they are. Then you practice. There are some people that are so good at the inner game, but they don't do anything about the practice. They write wonderful strategic plans, but 3 years into the strategic plan, they are following a different path altogether. Because their practice is not in line with their inner game. Or they are just lazy. Very good at thinking. And I hear Kenyans are good at this. Wonderful 5-year plans. But as soon as it's written, it's back to the shelf. We are now not talking about an organization. We're talking about your own personal life. Because if your personal life is sorted out, it will help you in your organization. if the organization employs people who are good in self-leadership, their performance will be high, the organization's performance will be high, but it's all coming from people who don't require supervision because they are self-driven. They are not needing something. They practice. They are not lazy. But they are not just practicing for the organization. They are practicing because what they do with the organization is in line with their overall goal in life. So, as we go towards finishing, I think it will be important for us to find a way of summarizing this and asking ourselves how far we are on it. And I'm finishing. Build and maintain high self-worth and self-confidence. Number 2, recognize your weakness, but lead with your strength. Number 3, practice your strength often for inspiration and confidence. Next, build your character and reputation with the personal values. And I've run out of time, I can't comment on this. Demonstrate by acting ethically and with integrity. And build positive psychological capital to sustain your business. So, are you leading self? Are you leading your boss? Are you leading your subordinates? How are you doing it? So, I would have gone into the practice, balanced living, purposeful living, discovering but the notes will be available. You can actually get my notes. I want to leave 5 minutes for questions. So let me hand over the meeting back to the MC.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Nganga. Please let us appreciate him and give him a clap from wherever we are. Thank you very, very much. We really do appreciate that very, very deep, enlightening lecture this morning. I open these 2 questions. You can write the questions on the chat. You can raise your hands, and Jackson will unmute you. Any question? Okay, Immaculate, is your hand up?
No, sorry, I was clapping.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for clapping on our behalf. I do not see any question. I do not see any hands. Okay.
Maybe Margaret, maybe you can
Yes?
you can ask somebody to comment. What has he had? In case I was talking to myself. With these gadgets, I may have been talking to myself. So somebody can comment on what he had.
Thank you. Let's hear some comments. I'm sure there are comments. Before I ask the CEO to comment, okay, excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nganga, for this stimulating presentation. My take home is to be a realist. Thank you. I don't know who that is, so I will just appreciate you for that comment. Any other comment? Margaret Njuguna says, it's truly good to learn. I need to work on my 50% and only 15% from the team. Thank you. And Corrido says it's inspiring. Okay. Engineer Shama says maybe more time will be helpful to go deeper in the topic, and that's true, Engineer, and we look forward to calling Mr. John Nganga for a workshop. Very informative. Well, they're all there, and I'm sure Mr. Nganga can read them. Wonderful presentation. We'll work towards being a realist. And I think the concept of pessimist, optimist, and realist has really enlightened us this morning. So thank you very much. There was a question, where can we get the books from? I know where you can get them, but because Mr. Nganga is here, I will leave him to comment on that.
Yeah, you can get my books on Amazon. That means I'm not one of the people who read digital books, but if you are that age group, you can get my books in Amazon. You can, if you want the link to the books, you can go to my website, www.johngaga.org, and then you go to the section on books. If you touch the book, it will take you to Amazon, and they are cheaper on the internet. But if you want a physical book, just next to you there at Hurlingham, Scripture Union Bookshop, just behind the Shell petrol station, all my books are there. I've written about 20 books so far, many of them on leadership, and they are all available there.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. More comments there. Self-awareness is of great essence in order to be a great leader. Great presentation, leadership starts with self-leadership. Very educative. Stop entitlement mentality. Thank you, Pauline. Anne Wanjiro says, I learned that strengths need to override our inner weakness. Great learning there. All right, thank you very much, team, for making time to come. At this time, I would like to invite our CEO, Mr. James Nyamongo, to give his comments, even as he appreciates Mr. John Nganga. Welcome, Mr. Nyamongo.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Nganga and the people who have attended this morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for giving this inspiring talk this morning. And I'm hoping that my entire staff and also maybe those who are not online have really listened to this inspiring topic. And more so especially on self-leadership. This is something which is very, 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 very key